For 60 hours in late October 2016, the world's attention narrowed to a space no larger than a small bedroom. The lights were low, the air was dense with candle wax and incense, and the city above never quite slept. Inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, beneath the great round dome, the small shrine known as the Edicule stood wrapped in scaffolding. Conservators, engineers, monks, and a handful of journalists moved in hushed coordination. And then, very carefully, the marble that had sealed the tomb venerated as the resting place of Jesus was lifted. What they saw in that brief window was stone. Ordinary limestone, rough to the touch, and history layered so tightly that it took science, patience, and reverence to tell one century from another. To understand why those 60 hours mattered, you have to feel the life of the church around the shrine. Pilgrims step onto worn flagstones that remember 1,000 processions. The Greek Orthodox, the Armenians, the Roman Catholic Franciscans. Each community cares for its chapels here under a delicate arrangement called the status quo. Everything inside has a guardian and a story. The Holy Sepulchre is more than a building. It's a memory palace where the Christian claim that Jesus died, was buried, and rose again is honored in stone and prayer. But buildings age, fires scorch them, earthquakes shake them. In 1808, a devastating blaze destroyed much of the Edicule. By 1810, it was rebuilt. In 1947, fearful that cracks would widen and the little shrine might collapse, authorities bolted an iron cage around it like a brace on a broken limb. It held, inelegantly, for 70 years. By 2016, the need was urgent. Moisture had seeped into old mortar. Marble slabs were shifting and stained. The Edicule's skin was tired. For any structure, that would be reason enough to act. For this one, there was another reason. With every passing year, the physical fabric that carried a living faith through empires grew more fragile. The three communities that share the church did something difficult and beautiful. They agreed, together, to restore the Edicule. A team from the National Technical University of Athens, led by conservator and engineer Antonia Miraculous, was invited to stabilize the shrine, document what could be documented, and return the structure to dignity without erasing its scar. Work began with listening. Laser scanners hummed in the rotunda, recording millions of points to map every surface. Ground-penetrating radar whispered through the marble, sending signals that hinted at voids and bedrock behind the cladding. Engineers tapped and measured and whispered back their assessments. This can be saved. This must be braced from within. This joint can carry weight again if we inject new grout. Scaffolding laced the shrine like a set of careful hands. The goal was conservation, not reconstruction. Heal what is there, reveal what is original when possible, and protect the whole for another century. Then came the request no one made lightly, to lift the slab that covered the burial bench inside the inner chamber. The slab had not been moved, as far as records and tradition suggest, since at least the mid-16th century. Lifting it would allow proper structural work and a unique opportunity to view the rock beneath. The church leaders gave their consent, but with conditions. The opening could last only as long as necessary. It would be done at night. It would be gentle. And when finished, the tomb would be resealed. On the evening of October 26, 2016, the chamber was cleared. The Edicule has two rooms, a tiny antechamber called the Chapel of the Angel, and the burial chamber beyond it. In the first chamber, tradition holds that a fragment of the stone that once sealed the tomb is remembered on a small pedestal. In the second, the burial bench lies along the right, or north, side. The space is tight. Electrical cables for the cameras curled along the floor. Gloves were pulled on. Lamps warmed the walls. The team photographed, measured, and breathed slowly. Conservators eased the upper marble covering from the bench, sliding it away like a lid. Beneath it, they found another thin slab, older, incised with a faint cross, likely from the Crusader period. That layer, too, was documented and lifted. And then, the thing that every pilgrim wonders about but few ever see was there. The original limestone surface, the rock-hewn bench carved into the bedrock of Jerusalem. It was in one sense unremarkable. No glowing aura, no secret inscription, just pale, pitted limestone, the texture of 1,000 caves. In another sense, it was overwhelming. The bench matched the form used in first-century Jewish tombs, a carved shelf where a body could be laid out, usually in a family cave where bodies were later gathered into niches or ossuaries. The bench at the sepulchre is a survivor. Over the centuries, the cave around it was cut back and encased. Wars raged. Fires burned. Devotees built and rebuilt. The bench remained, protected beneath marble like a relic within a reliquary. For about 60 hours, through 2 nights and a day, work continued. Everything was photographed and scanned. The team collected small samples of mortar from the edicule's fabric, careful not to harm anything essential. Those samples would later be tested using a technique called optically stimulated luminescence, which can estimate when certain minerals were last exposed to light, useful for dating construction phases. Early results, announced in 2017, suggested that mortar within the shrine dated to the 4th century, in the range of Constantine's original complex, and to the 12th century, the era of Crusader repair, findings that harmonize with the known history of the place. Other observations unfolded in the quiet. Above the bedrock bench had been a succession of coverings, thin marble sheets, protective layers of mortar, and patches from different centuries. The faint cross incised on one slab fit the medieval habit of marking holy places with simple symbols rather than explanatory text. The inner chamber's dimensions, tight but serviceable, matched a space built to be visited. The original cave would have been slightly larger. Now, what survives is the bench itself and a shell around it. The team confirmed what generations of pilgrims had been told by clergy: the rock is real, beneath the marble. In the reconstruction to come, a small window would be left in the inner chamber so that the original bedrock could be glimpsed by visitors, a concession to curiosity and transparency. Meanwhile, structural healing began. Cracks were injected with lime-based grouts compatible with historic materials. Corroded metal elements were replaced with stainless or titanium anchors hidden within the stone. Soot and salts were delicately cleaned from the marble's face. The ungainly 1947 iron cage was finally removed, replaced by internal reinforcements that made the shrine stable without scarring its exterior. None of this work was theatrical. It was craft. Millimeters measured, pressures tested, decisions taken with all 3 church communities kept informed and present. What they did not find is as important as what they did. There were no human remains. None were expected. For well over a millennium, this site has been honored as empty. Christianity's claim is not that relics lie here, but that they do not. Archaeology cannot prove a miracle, and the team never attempted to. What archaeology can do is describe spaces, materials, and sequences. A limestone bench of the right era under layers that fit known history. A shrine that emerged in the 4th century under imperial patronage. Repairs and reinforcements across centuries of war and peace. Step back from the bench, and you enter the long corridor of memory that led to this moment. In the early 4th century, after the Roman persecution of Christians ended, Emperor Constantine and his mother Helena ordered churches to be built at places central to the life of Jesus. Jerusalem's bishop guided them to this area, which ancient sources describe as a disused quarry and garden-like zone just outside the city's walls in the 1st century, a place where rock-cut tombs were plausible. Constantine's builders carved away cliffs, erected basilicas, and created a complex that drew worshippers from across the empire. Across time, Persians, Crusaders, Ottomans, and the British left marks on the complex. Through all of it, the fundamental instinct was the same: protect this memory. Keep this place. The opening in 2016 did something quietly profound. It strengthened the bridge between memory and material. The optically stimulated luminescence dates, consistent with a 4th century sanctuary and a 12th century rebuild, do not certify a miracle. They certify that the shrine people have venerated for ages was indeed built when records say it was. The bench itself, exposed to the world for a breath of time, looked like every other limestone bench from the era. That is exactly the point. Extraordinary claims do not leave extraordinary geology. They leave ordinary stone enshrined by extraordinary devotion. There were other small graces in those 60 hours. The church communities worked side by side as they had to, but also as they wanted to. The conservators moved with the careful respect of guests in a family home. Cameras documented for the public what had been hidden for centuries, but the team resisted spectacle. When the work was done, on schedule, because it had to be, the layers were replaced in order. The cross-marked slab went back. The cover slab was returned. The bench went into hiding again, and the aedicule, newly strengthened, stood a little straighter. In March 2017, after months of masonry, cleaning, and structural work, the aedicule was unveiled to the world, free of the iron cage that had marred it for 70 years. The color of the stone was lighter. The lines were clearer. Inside the burial chamber, the small window now offered a glimpse of the bedrock. For many pilgrims, that window became a gentle answer to a whispered question. Is there really rock under all this marble? Yes, there is. There is also debate, and there should be. Some Christians prefer to pray at the Garden Tomb, a quiet site north of the old city's walls, where a rolling stone groove and a rock-cut chamber evoke the gospel story beautifully. Most archaeologists date that tomb to a much earlier period, the Iron Age, which makes it an unlikely candidate for Jesus' burial. The Holy Sepulchre's claim is not that it is beautiful or serene. Its claim is that the evidence of continuous veneration reaches back to the 4th century, that the site sits in the right kind of 1st century landscape, and that the fragmentary cave inside still bears the mark of a typical Jewish tomb from that era. You can honor the meaning you find at any site, while also acknowledging what the historical method can and cannot support. If you listen closely to the way the 2016 team spoke about their work, you hear humility. They dated mortars, not miracles. They measured stones, not stories. And yet, stories breathe through stones. When the slab slid back and the light fell on the limestone, a modern scientist and an ancient pilgrim shared a single posture, attentive, careful, aware that something more than a geological surface was being handled. The more was not a test result, it was a trust. What lingers from those 60 hours is not a revelation that rewrites textbooks. It is a set of convergences. The physical core, the bench, fits what it should be. The historical layers, Byzantine, Crusader, later repairs, sit in the right order. The dating methods, while not precise to a year, line up with the big moves we already knew. Constantine's builders, medieval restorers, modern caretakers. The church communities, often portrayed as rivals, proved they can act together for the good of the place. And the public, for once, got to see a part of the shrine that had been sealed since the 1500s. What about the details that went unspoken? The gospel note about Roman guards at the tomb is a theological and literary claim. There are no Roman administrative records to corroborate it. The resurrection itself is confessed by Christians as an act of God, not a laboratory event. None of this weakens the work done in 2016. It clarifies it. Archaeology can sketch the frame. Faith fills the canvas. And in a world hungry for certainty, it is actually freeing to say what we know, what we think likely, and what we simply believe. Imagine yourself standing there on the last night as the team prepared to seal the chamber again. The cameras have their final shots. The conservators check their notes. The air feels different when marble returns to stone, as if the room exhales. The slab slides into place with a softness that surprises you, a stone meeting stone the way it did centuries ago. The work lights dim. In the morning, the pilgrims will return and the chants and candles will pick up where they left off. Most of them will never step where the team just did. And yet, because of those 60 hours, every pilgrim who enters now does so with a little more clarity, a little more honesty about what is there, and a little more wonder about what Christians say happened there. There's a line that guides careful storytellers at the Holy Sepulchre: be exact where you can, and reverent where you cannot. The exact parts from 2016 are straightforward. The aedicule was stabilized and cleaned. The clumsy iron cage was removed. Hidden anchors and new grouts strengthened the shrine. A small window lets you glimpse the bedrock bench. Mortar samples from the Aedicule produced dates consistent with the 4th and 12th centuries. Beneath centuries of marble lay a limestone bench that looks like it should. These are facts. The reverent part is what those facts mean. Across languages and time zones, Christians say that the emptiness of this tomb is the heart of their hope. The 2016 opening did not try to prove that hope. It respected it. It safeguarded the fragile skin that carries it. It let the world look, just for a moment, at the simplicity under the ceremony. And the simplicity was enough. A rock-hewn bench, a chamber made ready to receive a body, a place that ancient believers wrapped in care. So when you hear the phrase 60 hours inside the tomb of Christ, don't imagine a team hunting for proof. Picture skilled hands cleaning stone, priests watching and praying, and cameras witnessing the cooperation that made it possible. Picture a thin slab scored with a cross returning to its place, a lid closing, and a window left as a promise. There is real rock under here. Then step back into the rotunda, tip your head to see the light pouring down from the dome, and listen to the prayer that never really stops in that place. What they saw under the marble was ordinary stone. What many find there, then and now, is the extraordinary hope that the stone could not keep. The story didn't end when the chamber closed. In March 2017, the Aedicule reopened to ceremony and quiet smiles. The work will continue. Conservation always does. More non-destructive studies may refine the timeline of layers. New documents might yet surface that fill gaps in the site's earliest history. But the shape of the story is set. A 1st century style bench, honored for 16 centuries, encased and recased by generations who believed this mattered enough to protect. A brief unsealing showed the world that the heart of the shrine is simple and sound. If the Christian claim is true, then absence is the point, not presence. The 2016 team handled the absence with care. They let the stones speak for themselves, and they let the church keep speaking in its own voice. And in that partnership, science measuring, tradition remembering, faith confessing, you can glimpse the texture of how the past reaches into the present. 60 hours was all it took to restore their trust. 60 hours to trade a rusted cage for hidden strength. 60 hours to show that beneath centuries of marble and story, there is still rock. And for many who line up quietly under that great dome, that rock is enough.